look for somebody who has military background, is white, and thinks a lot about white people.
Yeah.
Pretty much Timothy McVeigh,
Who's that?
the Oklahoma City bomber. Half the people on 60 Minutes have a military background. They're white supremacist or they're an incel. Or a school shooter, depending what criteria you're looking for. But yeah, I've never worked at a place that's had an attack. I did interview at a place where an ex-employee had stabbed somebody in the leg, and I decided, I don't want to work there.
What type of
Home health. A special needs person had stabbed someone in the leg, and very few special needs people even want to do that. They're usually pretty passive, very nice. Occasionally you'll get a few that like to roll around on the floor and beat each other up. But for some reason that person did not feel heard, so he...
That's great.
And it's like, you know what? I'm good.
Yeah, I feel like that's enough to make people not want to do that stuff. Honestly, I never really thought that we would have to deal with certain stuff like that here in the hospital. Thankfully, no one's ever actually gotten stabbed because, again, before anyone goes into emergency when they're checking, they have lighters, pepper sprays, any sharp objects, anything that can be used as a weapon before they go in there. One time, a guy, he had taken in a nail clipper, how the nail clippers are like the little metal.
Oh dear.
He tried, but with the time that he tried to, so he had just like picked a fight with another policeman inside, and it started like getting verbal, and one of them got up, and that's when he tried to pull the knife out. The moment he went in to make some damage, it bent back in. So we got lucky that wasn't. I was like, yeah, okay, now we gotta add that to the list. No nail clippers, or at least make sure.
Yeah, my father worked in a veterans hospital for burn victims and people with PTSD. 6 months and then they move you somewhere else. Or you start becoming one of them. It's very emotionally, psychologically taxing to deal with that kind of high stress. It's kind of like working in a institute for the criminally insane. I always think of that scene from Silence of the Lambs. Good evening, Clarice. Could not work in that environment.
Honestly, it does definitely, how you said, it does take a toll on you. It's a lot to handle, to deal with sometimes. Especially if you're an empath in the beginning. I'd always make small talk with the patients I would be taking care of. Most of the time I just feel like they're misunderstood. Young people, little by little, I've seen a lot of minors being checked in.
Oh yes, that's what the POs would tell me all the time. 10-year-old stabbed and assaulted their mother.
Yeah, literally we've seen a little too many of those, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not here for, child endangerment at all. Sometimes you really gotta step your foot down and let them know who's really like, what happened to being like raised with like knowing to respect your elders.
Oh yes, in Florida, I met a nice lady who used to work in Wisconsin at a PO center, and she said one of the patient inmates she knew was Morgan Geyser, and I said, "You're kidding?" And she said, "No." She was if I remember correctly, she was the ringleader of the Slender Man killers.
No way.
They stabbed their friend almost to death.
Yeah, I do remember her.
And I said, "Who else have you met? Ted Bundy?" And I said, "You need to write a book."
No, for reals.
Yeah.
Yeah, believe it or not, I feel like, all of these people, so I'm very interested into, like, high psychology, like, what was a stressor, what,
Yes.
So if they could get that, I'm not trying to, like, justify their actions or what had happened, but there's something that had to be a stressor, what took her, what brought her to do that, what made her think of that.
I met a woman tourist in Florida, she had been very close friends since childhood with Judith Ridgway, the third wife of Gary Ridgway. He's the gentleman that they actually were trying to find that Silence of the Lambs is based off of. Probably the most prolific person in American history. And I said, was he normal? No. He was not. He was very religious, but he was not normal.
Oh, really? I didn't out of all people, I really wouldn't have thought that he was religious.
Most serial killers are. Yeah. Of course, only 1% of prison inmates are atheists. I'm so glad to be an atheist. Yeah, we